If you're having trouble with a noisy tapping or ticking noise coming from your engine, this video is designed to help you work out where that noise might be coming from. So it's not really an instructional video on how to take things apart. It's more about the diagnosing where the noise might be coming from. Diagnosing for the Buick 3.8, in this case one fitted to the Holden Commodore. We have the supercharged L67 version. A lot of this would also apply to the normally aspirated 3.8 or 3800. This, as well as being used in the Holden Commodore in Australia, is also used in lots of cars, lots of General Motors cars in the US, like the Buick, Prix, LeSabre, etc. Now the Commodore is a rear-wheel drive version of the 3.8. A lot of the American models, it's a transverse front-wheel drive. Same motor, different layout. Okay, so the first step is trying to narrow down where the sound is coming from. Or if you can get like a broom handle, put it against your ear and touch that on different parts. Even better still is one of these stethoscope. I'll demonstrate with the broom handle simply because it'll be easier for you to see where I'm targeting. The checks are done with the engine running. For this video I will be pointing at things with the motor off so you can hear me. These belts will rip anything off that gets caught in them. The engine's not going to stop because you say ow. Also, you know, your fan can start up at any time without warning, like the sticker says. First one would be the supercharger coupler. What you can do to test that more convincingly is take your supercharger belt off. It's a 15mm spanner or socket on tensioner. Start the engine up again. If the noise goes away, then I'd certainly be starting with that coupler as the source of your noise. Now the other potential source of noise, all of these pulleys, there's a lot of them, right? If you remove your auxiliary belt, the second one, and the noise goes away, then it's probably one of your pulleys. It could also be the water pump. Now with the auxiliary belt removed, you no longer have a water pump cooling the engine. Don't run a hot engine with the auxiliary belt off. You're taking that tension off to put the belt back on. The one that goes back on last should be one of these smooth pulleys. Don't be tempted to put it back on one of these pulleys that has teeth on it. Don't do that last because you won't get it on just right and you'll end up with a squeaking belt. Make a sketch before you take the belt off. So this is right for my car, it might not be right for yours. And does the sound get louder or quieter as you move up the engine? Okay, so what if it's louder at the bottom of the engine? You hope that it's not your big end bearings, of course. They're normally more of a knock than a tap, tap, tap. So moving up the engine, you've got a timing chain in behind here. So if your noise is louder in these parts, obviously this is something you're going to be doing with the belts off. Near the middle of the engine, perhaps it's a timing chain. There's also a balance shaft. You'll see later in the video where that balance shaft bearing is. So other places you can look. Exhaust. I know you're probably looking for a ticking noise, but it is possible for that ticking noise to be exhaust escaping through a small leak. You imagine that over the sound of an engine could sound like a tick. You can also have a helper with a rag, get them to block the exhaust with the rag while the engine's running, get more of the sound with the exhaust blocked. Go through checking each of your exhaust manifold pipes. Is it louder coming from one of those? It doesn't mean it's an exhaust leak, right? You're just narrowing it down to which cylinder. If there's one cylinder, the ticking's really loud on the exhaust. that might be the source. Your fuel injectors go through with the stick right there. Now those always make a noise even when they're working right, but it should just be a little faint tick, 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 tick. Shouldn't be a big loud noise. Also on each one of these rocker cover bolts, think about your noise. Does it go with the revs or is it just something rattling? If it's just a rattle that rattles more as the engine gets more, you know, all sorts of things that could be loose and rattling around. But if it's very consistent, like a sewing machine with the engine revs, then it's more likely it's something inside the engine, okay, that's associated with the valve train. Hey, imagine if it was just a loose spark plug lead. That would be nice, wouldn't it? These are, you can check all of these are on all the way. Check that it's not actually broken. Imagine if the spark plug wire was broken somewhere and was arcing across. It can very easily produce a tick, 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 tick noise. Now we're going to have a look under the valve cover. Pick a side. I've chosen the intake side, so remove your intake pipe. Your injectors, there's this little push clip, right? So push that, pull, those come off. Spark plug leads are out of the way. Loosen the 3 bolts that hold the coil packs in place, and just need to set them out of the way. They should give you enough room to get the valve cover off under that throttle body. Cool. You can go through, check your valve springs, check none of them are broken. You can check if any of your lifters are loose or rattling around in there. Now also check your push rods. Obviously you've got pretty limited visibility at this point, but have a look. It is possible to have the mounting plate or the push rod in the wrong place, right? So it's just maybe the engine's been apart and somebody's reassembled it wrong. It's easy to get those push rods out of alignment and wedged in a funny position. While it's still together, there's one more check you can do. You can actually take the valve covers off and start the engine, have it running, and check for noise along the valve train itself. For this particular engine, oil's not squirting all over the place while it's running. It's more like it's drip-fed oil as it's running to the valve train. So, so you take that off, it's not going to squirt all over the place. Yes, you'll probably have a few drips of oil drop down on the exhaust manifold, but not a big deal in my opinion. If you've narrowed it down to likely being part of the valve train, you take the valve cover off on that side and then listen to each part of the valve train. Use your imagination in terms of how dangerous that can be. I wouldn't go jamming a piece of wood into the valve train. That's going to wreck your motor and other things, of course, but there'll be places on that valve train that are reasonably still, like the rocker bolts. Now the next step, you can check the preload or the lash on the valves, right? These aren't adjustable lifters like older engines where you undid a bolt, used a feeler gauge to get that right. Instead, these use a hydraulic lifter. The idea behind the hydraulic lifter is it's self-adjusting. Okay, so that's all well and good as long as everything's working right and the clearances are within tolerance. But what you can do is check that that is working okay, and that relies on essentially there being no clearance there and actually a bit of negative clearance, you might call it, or preload. It's squashing down on those lifters. You want it to maintain a little bit of squash on the lifters, not too much. Too little, it's going to rattle around in there. Too much, it can also produce like a sewing machine sound, people call it. So I will take a lot of this off so I can film it easier, but certainly this next check can be done with the valve cover off. Why would this be out? So if you've done work on the engine, put it back together, it's making noise, then what you actually need to do is go through a procedure to measure the right length push rod and purchase those different push rods. I'm not going to go through all of that. If you've got a standard motor, it's making noise, I'll go through a check, some basic check of lifter preload to see if that could be the source of your problem. You'll need to turn the engine from the crank pulley there, and you'll be looking at the lifter preload when that valve is on the heel of the cam. So not opening the valve when it's on the other side of the cam. That's where you measure the preload. We're measuring the lifter preload. So we want to take a 3/8 socket. Always start with the 3/8 on the 3.8. So we're just taking up some tension so that this doesn't flop around as the starting point, right? So down till there's just tension on there. It can still move side to side, but nothing up and down. Next, we want to measure how many turns it is to wind this all the way down. I'm going to measure it in half turns. 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's about 3 and a 1/8 of a turn. That tells you how much preload is on the valve. You're aiming for between half and 1.5 turns, full turns. So it's a little bit on the high side. That actually means there's a bit too much tension. Hopefully you've found the source of your noise, your tick already, and it's something that you can easily access, is cheap and quick to replace. Failing that, if you've got a problem that will require, for example, if your lifter's a suspect, that's when you need to start pulling the engine apart to access it. But make sure you perform as many checks as possible with the engine still together. The next is the deep dive, and that's taking the supercharger, intake manifold, alternator, all those bits and pieces come off. Now, this isn't a video showing you how to do all of that, so I will skip to those off. This video is mostly focused on lifter and valve gear problems, but while we've got the heads off, let's see if there's any other problems that are emerging. You can look at your pistons, is there a lot of play or movement in there? I use the rubber end of my hammer. Is there any knocking noise when you do that? That would indicate a big end bearing problem. When you have your lifters out, you can actually see your cam lobes down these holes. There's the cam lobe down there, and I can rotate the engine. See if any's if there was the tip taken off the cam lobe, that's going to cause some trouble, right? The balance shaft, that's another part that can go bad and cause a rattle. You'll notice this one, if I just rock it, there's a noise. Maybe that's the source. Probably not. In this case, there is some play in the gears that drive it. That play in those gears should get taken up as soon as the engine's running. Now, I want to focus more on play in the bearing, especially one at this end. To do that, I'll turn it slightly to take up the slack in those gears, and then wobble, and I can't detect any movement there at all. Likewise at this end, when the engine's together, when you're first looking where's that noise coming from. So if this bearing was gone, you may find your noise would be loudest here. Next one to check is your lifters. Oiling hole here. On the end, this is your roller that rolls over the camshaft, and on the end here is where your push rod makes contact. Let's see how I can compress that. New one soaked in oil, and I'm not able to compress that anywhere near as easily. Now it is possible that you've just got some gunk in here, right? And that's where people sometimes get success with solving lifter noise by running a lifter treatment in the oil. A fix in a bottle is if there's just some gunk in here that is preventing it from oiling properly. So you can take these apart to check for any gunk that's building up in there. They just have a little square retaining clip in here, right? So don't be too worried about taking them apart, even if you don't plan to replace it. There's your retainer clip. Keep these parts in order, of course. See the little ball valve in there. So what I'm going to do is depress that with a small screwdriver. And what that's going to do is break the seal. It's basically suction that's holding it in, right? Break that again. There we go. Okay, so another piece you take apart is this one here. It has some little notches right on the side, so I'm just putting a little screwdriver in there and taking that out. Your little bearing is kept inside there, along with the little spring. Here we're going to have gunge build up, and you can imagine that prevents the bearing from forming a seal on that hole. Then you're losing pressure, and that's where you can get the lifter collapse. Okay, so then you can reassemble it. This is sitting on some little needle roller bearings. You can see there's a pin through here that it runs on. Now, I think a bit of side-to-side movement is normal because it is just sitting on those roller bearings, but of course you don't want it to be flopping around and loose. With the push rods out, you also want to inspect those. Check the ends, what the wear is looking like. You can check, is it straight? Roll it on a flat surface. I've seen on a couple of YouTube videos where this has caused the failure of the engine. The reason they were rebuilding it was the failure of this part. So aside from it might be the cause of your noise or rattle, you don't want to put this motor back together and have it detonate not long after. And it's a pretty simple part. This is the plastic lifter tray or lifter guide. Okay, sits in the engine with the guides slide up into here. It holds them in place and it stops them from rotating. Okay, the guide's meant to go up and down, it's not meant to rotate. This roller bearing needs to stay on the camshaft in alignment with it. If it rotates too much, it's going to start taking chunks out of metal. All right, so at the very least check it. You're looking for play in here. You can hear that flopping around in there. Even more so there, that's an old one. A new lifter tray. I don't know if you can hear that. There's the tiniest little bit of movement in there for a new lifter tray. I'm not sure what these are made out of, some sort of plastic. So, and when you replace them, they come with new bolts that are captive. 2 little bolts, an easy one. I think on Rock Auto they're like $10 each or something. So I'd recommend you replace them regardless, but at the very least check them. Okay, that's it for the parts that you can access, check and replace with the supercharger and intake manifold removed. The next part of the video is parts that can be replaced with the cylinder head removed. Valves, valve guides, valve springs, and we'll go through some other checks you can make while that cylinder head is off. You'll need to replace the head bolts, those are torque to yield, as well as the head gasket. On your head you also want to check that your valves aren't too receded into the head. If your valve seat's been machined too much or worn too much, you're measuring from there, so that the head itself, not the base of the valve guide, and measuring the length to the top of the stem with the valve closed. And that should be between 49.2 millimeters and 50.5 millimeters. Worth checking. You've got a noise, right? You might as well check everything while it's apart. So the next thing you want to check is how much wear is in your valve guide, and that can certainly produce a noise from the valve train. So we're going to measure it at a point that's about 10 millimeters, or about 3/8 of an inch, out from the valve stem, is what my manual says to do. And so I'm actually going to take it, push it in a little bit so that the valve seat itself is not preventing the play. Okay, so I've got that in place and I'm just rocking that back and forth, and you can see that moving. The tolerance is 10,000th of an inch, or 1/4 of a millimeter, 0.25 millimeters. So you can get some wear on the valve itself. It's certainly an easier one to replace. It won't necessarily produce a lift tick, but while you've got the head off, it's certainly worth checking that you're forming a good seal on each of your valves. And there is an easy way to check that, and that is to put some liquid down the port, down each one of the ports. Fill it up as much as you can and see if the liquid comes out here. Now I think some people use diesel or petrol. Last time I used deionized water, just simply checking whether it leaks out through the valve. If it is leaking out, then you've got a problem that needs sorting. That's as well as a visual inspection of your valve seats and the valve itself. So that's it for this video. I've tried to assemble as many different as I can find. If you know of another one that I've missed, one that people can check for at different stages, please leave a comment at the bottom there to help those other people that are trying to track down that bloody annoying noise that's driving them nuts every day. Thank you.